Bella walked into court in a gold bow tie. Harper, the daughter-in-law who stole Eleanor's bedroom, brought 3 lawyers. Eleanor brought her son's signature, her late husband's trust, and a leash of iron. The judge paused. "Are you saying the dog owns 40% of your family business?" Gasps echoed. Cameras clicked. Harper paled. Eleanor leaned forward and said, "I gave birth to the boy, but I trusted the dog." "Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe." I heard scratching at the door. It wasn't them. It was the dog they gave my room to. The wheels of the taxi hadn't even stopped when Eleanor's heart dropped. Through the frosted window, she saw it. A pink satin nameplate hanging from the bedroom door. Not hers, not even human. It read, "Bella" in rhinestone letters, flanked by paw print decals. She gripped her cane tighter, stepping out of the car slowly. The familiar scent of lavender from the garden still lingered, but the home didn't feel like hers anymore. A thin chill, or maybe something else, crept under her skin. Inside, the living room echoed with laughter, but no one came to greet her. Her suitcase waited by the wall like an afterthought. She limped down the hallway, only to stop short when she opened her bedroom door. A tufted dog bed, larger than her hospital cot, sat in the center of the room. Silk sheets, a temperature-controlled dog bowl, a wall-mounted pet cam with blinking lights. Her entire sanctuary had become a canine luxury suite. Her handmade quilt was folded in a corner, on the floor. And then came the scratching. From the opposite side of the door, tiny paws clicked against the hardwood floor. It wasn't her family coming to check on her. It was Bella, Harper's pampered designer poodle. Harper's voice floated in from behind. "Oh, we didn't think you'd be back so soon, Eleanor." Her tone was faux cheerful, sugar with a razor's edge. Bella's very sensitive to disruption. She finally settled in. Eleanor turned slowly, her face unreadable. Scott stood beside Harper, looking down at his phone. He didn't speak. He didn't even look up. "I'll just get my things," Eleanor said, voice dry, almost polite. Later that evening, as twilight turned the sky bruised purple, Eleanor sat alone at the far end of the kitchen table. The other end, lit by string lights out back, was filled with voices, clinking glasses, and laughter. Harper, in her off-shoulder designer dress, was holding court. "It's only a matter of time before that room is ours anyway," Harper joked to someone Eleanor didn't recognize. "Might as well train Bella for the master suite early." Eleanor didn't flinch. She carefully cut her overcooked chicken breast with the dull side of the knife, her movements slow, deliberate. That night, while the house slept, she didn't. She stood quietly at the garage door, flipping on the light. Her belongings had been placed haphazardly near the lawn equipment, as if they were a garage sale waiting to happen. But she wasn't here for the suitcase. She opened the side panel of an old wooden cabinet. The key was still taped beneath it. At the storage unit downtown, dust greeted her like an old friend, but inside was a life she had once packed away, preserved, not discarded. She unlocked the steel-latched trunk, and the scent of cedar and old paper rose like a secret being whispered. Ledgers, bank slips, antique jewelry, a sealed envelope addressed in her late husband's clean, curling script, and finally, a leather briefcase with tarnished brass corners. Inside it were share certificates, signed in ink by the man who had once promised, "No matter what happens, you'll always be in control." She sat down on a stool, opened her phone, and pulled up Harper's latest social media post. It was Bella in a tuxedo bow tie, posing with a bone-shaped biscuit on a velvet pillow. The caption read, "Queen of the House." Literally. Eleanor stared at the image. A wicked, subtle smile pulled at the corners of her lips. She exhaled once, then dialed. "Hello?" came the voice of her old attorney, groggy and confused by the late call. "This is Eleanor Hayden," she said, steady as steel. "What's the legal procedure to gift a trust to a dog?" Eleanor's words hang in the air, slicing through the silence like a blade, poised to redraw the lines of power in that house, name by name and paw by paw. They set Bella's food bowl on my dresser. That was my breaking point. The moment Eleanor walked back into what used to be her bedroom, now a pastel shrine to a dog, she knew something had changed. Not just in the space, in her. The lace runner she'd stitched by hand now had paw-shaped indentations in the fabric. Her dresser, once holding lavender sachets and prayer cards, now hosted a chrome-edged water bowl and 2 organic duck-flavored food trays labeled Breakfast Bella and Dinner Bella. As she stood in the doorway, Harper's voice rang from the hallway. "You should have seen her this morning. She dragged that old pillow off the bed and nuzzled it like it was hers." A laugh followed. So weird, right? Moments later, Harper stepped into the room with her phone up, camera rolling. "Say hi to your fans, Bella. Look at you, queen of the castle," she cooed, just as the dog jumped onto the bed and began licking Eleanor's pillow. Harper laughed harder. Eleanor didn't speak, she simply watched. Later that afternoon, Harper uploaded the video to social media with the caption, "When your poodle wins the room war. Hacharm sorry, not sorry, Tacha Queen Bella." The post got 412 likes in 3 hours. Scott, hunched over his laptop in the living room, barely noticed. "The app's back-end needs restructuring," he muttered when Eleanor passed behind him. "I'm this close to pitching seed phase again." Eleanor stared at him blankly, biting back 1,000 questions she'd once rehearsed. Questions like, "Did you know they threw away my rosary box?" Or, "Is that the same startup I wrote your first check for? The one you never paid back?" But she didn't ask. She'd learned by now that silence carried more weight than begging. Instead, that night, she pulled out a slim, leather-bound notebook and opened it on the kitchen counter. She wrote the date, Tuesday, 4:11 p.m. "Bella on my pillow." Harper filmed, Scott silent. On the next page, "Trust begins here." She underlined it. That night, lying stiff on the cot in the garage that had become her makeshift bed, Eleanor stared at the ceiling and thought about the life she'd walked away from just to be closer to family. Her condo in the retirement village had been peaceful, birdsong in the mornings, crossword afternoons, quiet dignity. But Harper had insisted, "You'll be safer here. Closer to us, we'll take care of you." Eleanor had sold her home, liquidated her CDs, and moved in. Now, her memories shared a wall with fertilizer bags and lawn rakes. At dawn, she rose and returned to her old vanity table. There, tucked inside a plastic folder beneath a stack of utility bills, she spotted a set of unfamiliar papers. Something cold stirred in her chest. She slid them out and read, "Power of caregiving authorization, pending medical clearance." Her name, her date of birth, all correct. But her signature line? Blank. She flipped the pages, stomach twisting. Attached was a physician note, half-filled and unsigned. Her recent hospital release summary was stapled behind it. None of this had been shown to her. A soft bark echoed from behind as Bella padded into the room and plopped herself onto the bed, curling in a velvet donut cushion. Eleanor didn't move, didn't speak. She simply slipped the folder into her new journal, shut both gently, and wrote one more line before bed. "They think I'm fading. I'm drafting." Her fingers hovered over the paperwork once more. The date on the caregiving form matched her hospital stay exactly. Eleanor closed the folder slowly, eyes burning. "Let's see how fragile they think I am, once I start signing things too. They called me replaceable, but forgot who signed the checks." The ceiling fan hummed in lazy circles above Eleanor's head, but her mind spun in tight, furious loops. The dusty manila folder she'd just pulled from the bottom of her storage trunk sat on her lap like a grenade waiting to detonate. Inside, old brokerage statements, dividends she'd stopped tracking, and, there it was, an unassuming quarterly report from a company called North Branch Freight Solutions. 40% shareholder, her name printed clearly. She blinked at it. Once, twice. Scott had always brushed her off like some antique rocking chair, charming in its day but no longer useful. Harper didn't even try to hide her smirks anymore, calling her our live-in legacy when guests weren't supposed to hear. But now? Now she realized she didn't just have legacy. She had leverage. Eleanor picked up the landline in the garage. an old rotary phone Scott had once joked about unplugging, and dialed a number she hadn't used in 7 years. "Joseph Halpern? Trust and Estate Law," the woman's voice answered crisply. "Yes, I need to schedule a private consultation," Eleanor said calmly. "This week. What's the nature of the estate matter?" Eleanor's eyes flicked toward the open doorway, where Bella padded past wearing a tutu that matched Harper's neon tennis skirt. A guest at the front door cooed, "Oh my gosh, is she the one with the room?" Eleanor's voice cooled like glass. "It's regarding pet inheritance." Halpern's office smelled like old leather and fresh power. Eleanor sat perfectly still in the oxblood chair across from his polished desk, the share certificate folder resting on her lap like a chessboard. Halpern flipped through it, eyes widening with each page. "You've held on to this for decades?" "My husband told me not to sell it unless I had to," she said. "He called it our just-in-case file." "Turns out I'm the case." Halpern smiled, intrigued. "And what exactly do you want to do with it, Mrs. Wren?" Eleanor folded her hands over her cane. "They gave my room to a poodle, Mr. Halpern. I'd like to give their future to the poodle." He paused. "Legally speaking, we can't assign shares directly to a dog." She raised an eyebrow. "I assumed." "But," he leaned in, "we can create a trust. The beneficiary can be in the pet's name, with a human trustee overseeing the funds for its benefit. This structure is often used for exotic animals, racehorses, even parrots." "Then let's make Bella a board-worthy heiress?" Halpern let out a laugh. "You're absolutely serious?" "I've never been more serious. Let's call it the Bella Living Trust. And I want clauses. Lots of them. I want her protected. I want the secondary beneficiary to be an animal rescue nonprofit. If Bella moves on, the money moves on to something that actually deserves it." "Understood." Eleanor stood, straightened her collar, and extended her hand. "Also, I want the original stock certificate returned to me in a sealed envelope. I'm going to frame it." Back at the house, Eleanor found her name missing from the family group text. It had been replaced with "Grandma, mute thread." She didn't say a word. Instead, she placed her newly purchased leather-bound trust binder beside Bella's oversized dog bed. On it, a brass plate inscribed with the words, "Trust begins here." The same night, laughter echoed through the walls as Harper threw a spontaneous housewarming party. Eleanor wasn't invited. From the kitchen window, she watched strangers she didn't recognize clink glasses under strings of fairy lights she'd helped hang last fall. Bella pranced through the grass in a crown, Harper cooing over her like royalty. Eleanor stood by the sink, hands on the windowsill, watching the scene with quiet stillness. Then she walked back to her garage, opened the filing cabinet, and pulled out a pristine ivory envelope. It was addressed in gold ink. "To whom it will unequivocally concern, the beneficiary of the Wren estate shall walk on 4 legs." Upstairs, Harper giggled as she live-streamed Bella sitting in a chaise lounge. "She's the real queen of this house," she said with a wink to the camera. Downstairs, Eleanor sealed the envelope and whispered, "Yes, she is. But not for the reasons you think." They toasted under the chandelier I polished. I listened from the laundry room. The first sound Eleanor heard wasn't music, it was ice. The soft, irregular clink of cubes dropped into crystal glasses, too many, too fast. Then came the echo of heels on hardwood, laughter that didn't belong, and voices unfamiliar to the house she had once made a home. From where she sat, tucked in the laundry room behind the stacked detergent and a hum from the dryer, Eleanor leaned in, alert, her body still but every sense sharp. Through the vents, the party trickled in. "We're finally modernizing this place," Harper announced with mock authority, a glass of champagne raised like a queen's scepter. "No more nursing home energy." A few guests laughed, one snorted. Eleanor closed her eyes slowly, her hand tightening around the small digital recorder she'd set beside the detergent. The red light blinked back at her in solidarity. She pressed record. "And she doesn't mind?" a man asked, chewing audibly. "Oh, she minds," Harper replied with a smug lilt. "But that's the charm, isn't it? She won't say a thing. She'll just sulk like a ghost in the attic." Scott's voice followed, flat and appeasing. She's still recovering from her fall. Best not to stress her. Please, Harper scoffed. Bella has more energy than she does. As if on cue, the poodle's toenails tapped across the floor above, her tiny tutu rustling. Then, a commotion. Bella had jumped onto the charcuterie table. More laughter. A woman shouted playfully, "Oh my God, she took the prosciutto!" Eleanor could almost picture it. Bella, mouth full of cured meat, strutting like she owned the spread. Her ears perked in defiance, Harper clapping delightedly, Scott pouring more champagne that Eleanor's own dividends paid for. She rose silently from the laundry stool and stepped into the hall. The walls vibrated faintly with music now, low, modern jazz, mixed with gossip and clinks of cutlery. She didn't approach the party. Instead, she headed to the room no one else had entered since the incident, her late husband's study. The door creaked as she opened it, dust motes dancing in the hallway light. Inside, beneath a framed landscape painting, sat her old desktop printer and filing tray. Eleanor opened the drawer, retrieved a plain white envelope labeled HOA, External Modifications Approval, and slipped in a fresh letter typed the day before. She'd already drafted it after the Bella Room renovation. She'd just been waiting for Harper to decorate without permits. Downstairs, the party swelled louder. Eleanor signed the document slowly, deliberately, then sealed the envelope with a thumb press. She slipped it into her cardigan pocket and padded back toward the stairs, but didn't descend. Instead, she walked to the top landing and leaned gently on the railing. She could see Bella down below now, parading through spilled cracker crumbs like a victorious general. A man tried to pet her and was barked at. Harper laughed and handed him a mimosa. Scott stood at the kitchen island, nodding along to someone's praise about the open floor plan. "You'd never guess someone like her lived here, right?" Harper's voice carried up the stairwell. "It used to feel hospice-adjacent." That's when Eleanor turned and walked away. That night, while the guests stumbled home and the champagne went flat, Eleanor curled into the old twin mattress in the garage, surrounded by the faint scent of dryer sheets and cardboard. Bella scratched at her plush cot on the other side of the room, discontent with her folded blanket. Eleanor sipped chamomile tea from a thermos and cracked open her notebook. Date, April 14th. Action, taken HOA complaint mailed. Recording number 3, Hospice Energy plus Charcuterie Incident, timestamp 2104. She smiled, not bitterly, but with the calm of someone who had just pressed the first domino. The next morning, Harper stormed through the kitchen holding a letter in one hand and her phone in the other. "What do you mean, find? This is our house." Scott skimmed the notice. His face paled as he read the line. Renovations conducted without HOA approval. Report filed by Margaret E. Wren. He looked toward the garage door. Eleanor was already watering the plants, humming softly, as if she'd never even left. "They gave Bella my room. I gave Bella their future." Eleanor signed the last page with a pen older than Harper's marriage. The ink settled like blood in water. Permanent, slow, undeniable. Her lawyer, Mitchell, blinked twice behind his gold-rimmed glasses, then leaned forward, scanning the trust document as if it might bark back at him. "You're absolutely certain you want to go through with this?" he asked. Eleanor didn't blink. Bella now owns 40% of Stratline Freight through a pet trust, and the remaining board will just have to accept that a poodle has more fiscal discipline than half the humans in that house. Mitchell smirked despite himself. "Well, it's legal, eccentric but legal. And when she passes," Eleanor added, "every last cent of her share goes to the Golden Leash Foundation. No loopholes, no clawbacks, no heirs with bad haircuts and worse manners." Mitchell scribbled something into his notebook. "You're giving them the sharpest inheritance lesson I've ever seen taught by a toy breed." Eleanor reached into her handbag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a gold-plated dog tag, engraved with a single word in bold serif font. "Trust owner." She smiled like a chess player moving into checkmate. "Let them laugh. It's the last thing they'll inherit from me." The next morning, Harper entered the living room wearing silk slippers and a fresh blowout, scrolling through her phone as Bella pranced beside her in a polka-dot hoodie. Eleanor was seated quietly in the armchair by the window, knitting something golden yellow. "Bella looks like a true fashionista today," Eleanor said without looking up. Harper didn't bother responding. A moment later, Bella barked once, her little nails tapping excitedly on the wood as she sniffed the large gift basket that had appeared on the table. Ribbons, cellophane, gourmet treats, a chew toy shaped like a dollar sign, and the gleam of that gold tag. Tied to it, a card. From Grandma, the investor. Harper blinked. What is this?" Eleanor looked up mildly. "A gift for the newest stakeholder in Stratline Freight." Harper's confusion contorted into irritation. "Excuse me? I thought she deserved something to celebrate her new status." "Status?" Harper asked, holding up the tag. "She's a dog. She's your replacement." Across town, at a sunlit cafe, an investor named Mark Friedman held his phone loosely in one hand as his assistant pointed to the emailed registry update. There, just beneath Mitchell and Wren Holdings LLC, was a name that made him choke on his espresso. Bella Harper, Trust Entity. He picked up the phone and dialed the number listed under Primary Household Contact. It rang 3 times. Harper answered on speaker, mid-eyeshadow. "This is Harper." "Hi, this is Mark Friedman with Stratline Freight's Investor Relations. I just wanted to clarify something with you. Are you aware your dog's name is now listed on the company's shareholder registry?" There was a long silence. Then, "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" Mark cleared his throat. "Bella Harper is now listed as a trust-controlled stakeholder. We received confirmation of share assignment from Eleanor Wren's legal counsel. Your, poodle now holds a controlling interest in your husband's inheritance line." The call ended in a clatter. Harper had dropped her phone. Eleanor sat by the patio that evening, watching the sky burn orange through the lattice of bougainvillea. Bella sat beside her, quietly gnawing on her new chew toy. The golden tag around her neck glinted in the fading light like a crown. Eleanor took out her journal and opened to a fresh page. Date, April 17th. Entry, First Trust enacted. Phase 1 complete. Bella's silence speaks louder than all their laughter ever did. She sipped her chamomile tea and smiled at the absurdity. How something as gentle as a wagging tail had just overturned the balance of power in her own house. But this wasn't about the dog. It was about dignity and legacy. And now, it was public. Downstairs, Harper's phone rang again. She picked it up without thinking, still rattled. "This is Harper." The voice on the other end was colder this time. "Your poodle has voting rights now, and I need to know who's making decisions for her." Harper's eyes widened. "What decisions?" The voice sighed. "Board nominations, asset redirection. The dog's trust has veto power." Harper's stomach dropped. The dog wasn't just living in Eleanor's old room anymore. She owned it. "They bought her bows. I bought her a board seat." The backlash didn't come quietly. It came dressed in passive-aggressive texts and forced smiles at breakfast. "Mom," Scott said one morning, setting down his half-eaten toast, "this whole dog trust thing, it's getting out of hand. Do you know how insane this looks from the outside?" Eleanor barely looked up from her tea. "You mean the outside of the room I used to sleep in?" Scott winced. "That's not fair." "No," she replied, setting her spoon down softly. "What wasn't fair was watching your wife film your mother's pillow being licked by a poodle and thinking it was comedy." From the kitchen, Harper's voice chimed in as if on cue. "We didn't expect you to stay so long. Bella has sensitive habits." Eleanor turned her head slowly, as if watching a slow-motion car crash. "And I have sensitive assets. Shall we talk about those?" Later that week, Eleanor sat in her lawyer's office, flipping through a printed copy of the Stratline Board meeting notice. The invitation was clean, embossed, and unmistakably real. To Bella Harper, shareholder of record subject, Q2 board session, voting access and privilege. She smiled and tapped the edge of the document with a manicured nail. "Print another copy, please. I'd like to have this framed." Mitchell raised a brow. "You're enjoying this?" Eleanor didn't blink. "I'm documenting it. For the trust. For Bella. For history." By Friday, Harper had escalated. "She's unfit. She spat over the phone to a local radio host who had asked for comment. It's elder manipulation. No sane person gives company shares to a dog. Unfortunately for Harper, her voice was sharp, irritated, and playing over a backdrop of now viral footage. Her laughing, wine in hand, as Bella rolled on Eleanor's comforter. The video had captions, a dramatic piano score, and a closing screen that read, "Room for respect, protect your elders before they rewrite your legacy." The clip reached 30,000 views in a day. Elder advocacy pages began reposting it. One account compared Harper to a Silicon Stepford wife. Another called Eleanor the golden grandmother. At home, Eleanor answered the door to a courier holding a pale green envelope. Inside, a formal letter from Harper's boutique PR brand accusing her of legacy tampering and threatening legal review. Eleanor walked to the fireplace, pulled out a leather-bound box, and removed the original share certificate from Stratline Logistics. She made a copy, tucked it into a floral envelope with a handwritten note. "I suggest you frame this, Harper. You'll never hold anything like it again." Then she walked the envelope directly to Harper, who was busy photographing Bella beside a vase of lilies. Harper tore it open. Her jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," she hissed. Eleanor's tone was polite, dispassionate. "You think I play checkers? I play instruments with strings." At the next board meeting, Bella's chair sat empty, but her nameplate shimmered under the light. Bella Harper, shareholder trustee. Eleanor Wren Mitchell took a photo. Eleanor took 3. By Sunday night, Harper's brand, Heirloom House, was down 30% in social engagement. A cosmetics sponsor dropped her. Comment sections turned hostile. Bow Before Bella began trending under a photoshopped image of the dog wearing pearls and sitting in a boardroom chair. Scott sat on the porch with his head in his hands. Eleanor joined him quietly, offering a glass of water. "I didn't know it would go this far," he murmured. "You signed the trust transfer papers last year," she replied. "You just didn't ask what else came with them." Scott turned to her, eyes pleading. "You're trying to destroy us." "No," Eleanor whispered. "You did that the moment you watched them erase me and thought silence was love." That night, Harper's phone buzzed with a single-line email. Subject: termination of sponsorship. Body: we do not align with elder abuse, effective immediately. She threw her phone across the room. Bella barked once, and Eleanor, seated in the sunroom she had reclaimed, turned the final page of her journal and wrote, "They bought her bows. I bought her a board seat. Advantage? Bella. They laughed at my slippers. Now they panic at my silence." The letter arrived with the precision of a blade, cream-colored stationery, bold serif font. No return address, but Harper knew. The embossed initials at the top gave it away. EW. She opened it with one red polished nail, her jaw tightening before she even finished the first sentence. "You are not entitled to anything that wasn't earned. Consider this formal notice. Your expectations have expired. Eleanor." Harper crumpled the page, but the damage was already done. Words like those didn't fade. They lodged like splinters under the skin. In the house, Scott stood at the edge of the kitchen island, watching Eleanor stir her tea with unnerving calm. "You could have just told me," he muttered. Eleanor didn't look up. "Told you what? That you were planning to dismantle everything?" Eleanor set the spoon down. The chime of metal on porcelain filled the silence. "I wasn't dismantling anything," she said, "just reclaiming what shouldn't have been stolen in the first place." Scott glanced toward the hallway, where Harper paced on her phone, hissing into the receiver. "You think she married me for money?" Eleanor's eyes finally met his. "I think she married you for access." That afternoon, Eleanor signed a check under Bella's name, well, technically under the Bella Trust, LLC. The donation went to Paws of Grace, a no-kill animal shelter on the edge of town. The shelter's social media team posted a photo of Bella sitting in a child-sized leather chair, tongue out, in front of the check. The caption read, "Investor pup makes her first impact donation. Josh Senior Dogs Matter, Josh Golden Grandmother. Trust Fund Pup." The post hit 18,000 likes in 2 hours. Local news picked it up, then national. By sundown, Bella had more followers than Harper's luxury influencer brand. At home, the silence was heavier than usual. Eleanor moved slower that evening, her joints aching, breath shallower than it had been that morning. Still, she watered her garden as dusk fell, hands brushing against rosemary and lavender, the scent soothing and familiar. In the house, Harper scrolled through her phone, fuming at the comments on her own posts. Didn't she mock her MIL? Team Bella forever. Imagine losing your brand to a dog. Suddenly, her screen buzzed with a message from the security app. Unauthorized update. Emergency contact list modified. Contact, Harper Lane. Removed by admin. Scott, she barked, storming into the hallway. Did you remove me from her medical file? He blinked. What? Number Harper opened the app again, refreshed the screen. Her name was gone. Then who? Before she could finish, the security alarm beeped. Backyard motion alert. A scream tore through the quiet. Eleanor collapsed onto the flower bed, her watering can toppling, the stream still pouring over the grass. Scott bolted outside. Harper followed. Call an ambulance, he yelled, checking his mother's pulse. Eleanor's lips moved faintly, but no words came out. Bella barked from the window, frantic. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics lifted Eleanor carefully, voices low and efficient. Family? One asked. Harper stepped forward. I'm her daughter-in-law. The EMT glanced at his iPad. You're not on the list. What? He checked again. Emergency contact is listed as Mitchell Harper, legal trustee. That's all I can allow. Harper tried to push past. She lives in our house. No, ma'am, the EMT said calmly. The house is owned by the Bella Trust. You'll need to follow up legally. The ambulance doors shut. The siren wailed, and Harper was left on the curb, stunned, holding nothing but a phone with a dead battery and a purse full of expired validation. In the distance, Bella barked once from the porch, tail still wagging. Inside, Eleanor's tea sat cold on the table, her slippers untouched beneath the chair. They expected a will. I left a PowerPoint. The beeping was steady, oxygen hissed in soft rhythm. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, but under that, lavender clung to Eleanor's blanket. Bella's fur still stuck to the fabric from the ride in the ambulance. She stirred before sunrise, her hand brushing against the silky ears of her loyal roommate, curled up on the foot of the hospital bed. Bella blinked up sleepily, nose twitching, then rested her chin back down with the kind of trust only animals and the very young know how to give. Eleanor turned her head slowly to the tray table beside her. The small blue flash drive waited like a detonator. She had packed it weeks ago, long before her fall in the garden, long before Harper's. Crocodile tears made it onto the neighborhood Facebook group. Every folder on the drive was labeled with quiet precision. Financial transfers unauthorized. Power of attorney, unsigned copy. Harper voicemail transcript, slippersnotslaves.mp4. Inside each was evidence. Text threads, bank statements, screen recordings of surveillance footage from the garage camera Harper didn't know about. Eleanor had never needed volume to make noise. She was building a legacy stitched from silence, lined with receipts. The nurse brought breakfast with a practiced smile, but Eleanor barely touched it. Instead, she tapped a quick message on her phone and sent it to one name only, Langston Esquire. Check your mailbox. Folder. Sunrise. 2 hours later, her attorney walked in with a bouquet and left with a bombshell in his briefcase. Flashback, 3 months earlier. Eleanor sat at her favorite desk in the garage, the one covered in old ledgers and legal pads. Bella padded around her feet, occasionally tugging on the corner of an envelope like a paperweight assistant. On her computer, Eleanor assembled the final version of what she would later call the Inheritance Detour Plan. She added the last slide in her digital presentation, white letters on a black background. They handed me a kennel. I returned the deed. She chuckled softly, then clicked save. Her will was clear. No announcement, no delay. The funeral and shareholder meeting must happen on the same day. As her lawyer had put it, that's poetic, bordering on theatrical. Eleanor smiled. Exactly. Back in the hospital, her vitals beeped strong now. Her strength was returning, but she wasn't rushing. Let them squirm. Bella nuzzled her wrist, and Eleanor gave the dog a slow scratch behind the ears. "You're going to outlive us all," she whispered. "Just wait till they realize you already own them." That's when her phone vibrated. New email. Subject: Court Notice. Preliminary subpoena. Filed from Harper's legal counsel. We are formally requesting early access to Eleanor Winter's estate filings due to health uncertainty and concern of improper influence on financial decisions. Eleanor scrolled down, her lips tightening into a grin. "They're worried," she said aloud, not to Bella, not to herself, but to the entire air of the room. "Good." At the law office, Langston stared at the digital folder Eleanor had delivered. He watched 5 minutes of the first video, Harper laughing as Bella licked Eleanor's pillow, Harper's voice sharp as she said, "Soon we'll have the room, the account, and the name on everything." Langston clicked on another file, Scott Joint Account Timeline PDF, then another, HOA Violation Resolution Email PDF, then the final slide of the PowerPoint. "To the ones who fed me silence, I offer noise, loud, legal, and lasting." He closed the laptop and leaned back, breath slow. "She's not rewriting the will," he said to no one. "She's rewriting the game." Langston's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Harper's team, it was the probate judge's clerk. "We've received a petition to challenge trust validity with suspicion of mental incompetence." Langston's jaw clenched. "They're going to regret filing that." And across town, Eleanor whispered as she fell asleep beside her dog, "Let the fireworks begin." I stopped explaining myself. That's when they panicked. The doorbell didn't ring for days. Eleanor liked it that way. Her silence wasn't passive, it was strategic. Noise was for the panicked. She didn't need it anymore. From her kitchen table, she watched the steam rise from her tea as the early morning sun poured through the windows, warming the faint scratch marks still visible on the tile, Bella's doing from her daily victory laps. Eleanor flipped open the sleek matte black folder stamped "Confidential." Inside were forms, clean, crisp, irrevocable. She signed the last page of the final transfer. With that pen stroke, she removed Scott and Harper from every joint account. Bank, investment, insurance, gone, quietly, no calls, no warnings. She didn't owe them a script. That afternoon she sealed a thick white envelope with navy blue wax pressed with the symbol of her attorney's firm. It contained a single-page trust summary addressed to the couple. One line stood out in large serif font. "Effective immediately, Bella is the only dependent I recognize and trust." No explanation, no footnote, just truth, sharp as a scalpel. She slid the envelope into the mailbox with the kind of calm only people with nothing left to lose and everything left to control carry in their spine. Across town, Harper was filming an unboxing video in their backyard, plastic smile painted on thick. The dog's new custom food bowl glittered on camera, Bella's name engraved with rhinestones. Then the mail arrived. Scott handed Harper the envelope without reading it. She rolled her eyes. Probably another lecture. When she opened it and read the single line, her manicured hand trembled. "She's lost it," she snapped, but her voice had no conviction. She crumpled the letter and tossed it toward the trash. Bella trotted over, nosed the paper, then promptly ripped off a corner and chewed it. Scott stared at the dog chewing the legal declaration with wide eyes. "She ate part of it." Harper screamed, "Good!" Let her choke on it. But Bella didn't. She wagged her tail and sat by the pool as if she understood every word, and agreed. Meanwhile, Eleanor was painting again. The door to her former bedroom had been an ugly beige for years. She dipped a brush in bold burgundy and swept it across the wood, slow and certain. The strokes were thick, assertive, permanent. When she was done, she peeled the backing off a hand-painted sign and stuck it right in the center of the door. Bella's boardroom. Inside, the walls were now lined with framed certificates, stock ownership, trust documents, donation letters. Bella's honorary board invite sat in the middle, flanked by 2 small paw prints Eleanor had stamped using non-toxic ink. Her phone vibrated. A headline popped up. Golden grandmother turns estate into pet powerhouse subheading. Local widow uses trust law to make a poodle the region's most unexpected investor. Eleanor just grinned. Later that evening, the sunset was melting across the porch as Eleanor enjoyed her lemon ginger tea. Bella napped at her feet, soft snores rising in rhythm with the wind. And then, 3 short knocks. She didn't flinch. She stood slowly, patted Bella once, and walked to the door. When she opened it, her son stood alone. No Harper, no dog stroller, no camera crew, just Scott. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red. He held nothing, said nothing. And Eleanor, standing in her freshly painted doorway, arms crossed in a shawl the color of storm clouds, simply tilted her head. He swallowed. "Can I come in?" Eleanor didn't answer. She stepped aside, but not before glancing down at Bella, who had risen, her head tilted too, as if judging. Eleanor's only words, "Just you?" Scott nodded. "Just me." And for the first time in a long time, the silence that followed wasn't painful. It was loaded. He brought flowers. I brought receipts. The knock that morning was softer than the last, hesitant, almost ashamed. Eleanor opened the door just wide enough to see Scott. No Harper, no show. Just him, holding a bouquet of drooping daisies. A sheepish gesture from a son who hadn't brought her anything but silence in months. "Hi, Mom." He didn't meet her eyes. "Can we talk?" Eleanor paused, then stepped aside with a neutral nod, letting the door swing open just enough for Bella to peek out from behind her ankles. The poodle huffed, guard mode, but made no move as Scott entered, clutching the bouquet like it might save him. The kitchen smelled like ginger tea and lavender soap. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass panel Eleanor had installed herself last fall. Her sanctuary glowed with warm amber and pink. She didn't speak, just motioned toward a chair at the small table. He sat, awkward, careful. She took her time pouring tea for herself, none for him. "I know I haven't shown up," Scott began, voice hoarse, "but I came to say I'm sorry." She took a slow sip. "For what, exactly?" He faltered. "For letting it all get out of hand. I didn't mean for things to go this far. I just wanted peace." Eleanor met his eyes now. Hers were steel behind lace. "Peace," she echoed. "You call silence while my room was handed to a dog? Peace?" He dropped his gaze. The bouquet lay between them now on the table, wilting. Without a word, Eleanor rose and left the room. Scott sat frozen. The only sound was the ticking of the clock above the stove, and Bella's gentle paw clicks as she walked over and sat at Eleanor's chair like she belonged there. Because she did. Eleanor returned. Not with tears, not with forgiveness, with a folder. She dropped it on the table. Inside, a copy of the change of beneficiary form. Eleanor's life insurance policy, altered to name Harper as the sole recipient. The signature was forged. Scott blinked, lips parting. "What is this?" "Something your wife submitted to the insurance company," Eleanor replied, "but not before I caught it." She flipped another page. This one bore a time-stamped transcript from a phone recording. Harper's voice, clear and sharp. "The old woman's one fall away from freeing up everything. It's practically ours already." Scott's mouth opened, but no words came out. Eleanor leaned forward, quiet but cutting. "That's what peace sounds like to you?" He pushed back from the table like it had burned him. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't—" "You signed the bank forms," she snapped, louder now. "You watched her move my medications. You saw me eat dinner. Alone. You didn't stop it. You enabled it." He stood, shaking. "I thought it was just stress. You weren't saying anything—" "Because silence," she cut in, "was the only weapon I had left." Scott sat again, broken this time. Eleanor reached into the folder and took out one last sheet, an envelope with a single card, a lawyer's business card. She pushed it across the table. "You'll need this," she said. "Not for me, for yourself." Scott looked up at her, stunned. "You think she'll—" "She already has," Eleanor said calmly. "I built walls. You never noticed." The silence between them wasn't awkward this time. It was loaded, real. Bella padded back to Eleanor's feet and sat, tail gently brushing the floor. That evening, Eleanor stood on her porch with Bella beside her as the sun dipped low. The air was thick with honeysuckle and the electric buzz of pending storms. Her phone buzzed in her cardigan pocket. It was a headline alert. Breaking. Harper Calloway files for divorce, citing manipulation and undue emotional sabotage by her mother-in-law. Eleanor didn't react. She just deleted the notification and looked down at Bella. We'll see who manipulated who. As the sky darkened, a black car rolled up across the street. Paparazzi? Number it was Harper. Alone. Stepping out, red-lipped and rage-filled, with a camera crew in tow. Eleanor didn't flinch. Bella growled, low, certain, ready. They brought lawyers, I brought Bella, and a leash of iron. The courthouse buzzed like a wasp nest the morning Harper sued a dog, not metaphorically, literally. Eleanor stood in the lobby holding Bella's leash, gold-threaded, monogrammed, dignified, while flashes from cameras lit up around her like a red carpet premiere. The petition Harper filed screamed in legalese, dissolution of fraudulent trust, pet-based. Eleanor's response was 3 lines long. The trust is legal. The poodle is present. Inside the courtroom, Harper looked sharp and starved. Tight black dress, grim eyes. Her lawyer flanked her with a stack of folders like they were defending a Wall Street firm, not challenging a widow's dog. Eleanor wore navy blue and pearls. Bella sat obediently beside her chair, tongue lolling in grace, a tiny gold charm on her collar gleaming under fluorescent lights. Trust owner. The judge was unimpressed from the jump. Let me get this straight, he said, flipping through the petition. You're suing a dog? She's the beneficiary of an estate designed to evade rightful human inheritance, Harper's lawyer said smoothly. It's an exploitation of legal loopholes and intended to embarrass my client. Eleanor leaned forward, voice velvet-wrapped steel. My client has never forged a document, transferred life insurance without permission, or mocked an elder in public. She looked at Harper. Can your client say the same? A few gasps fluttered in the courtroom gallery. One woman from an animal rights group whispered, "Legend." Harper's jaw twitched. The judge reviewed the trust documents, all properly notarized, filed, verified. The primary beneficiary, Bella Calloway, via trustee oversight. The secondary, the Bella Legacy Fund, benefiting senior animal rescues and elder aid programs. Then came the spending audit. According to this, the judge muttered, flipping pages, Mrs. Calloway, Harper, spent over $60,000 of shared assets on luxury handbags, a teeth-whitening machine, and brand influencer events. During the same quarter she claimed the household lacked financial liquidity. He glanced over the rims of his glasses. And yet the dog is the frivolous party? Harper tried to respond but tripped over her words. Bella sneezed delicately as if in judgment. Eleanor's attorney called one final witness, a representative from the Animal Rights Coalition. She testified about the importance of public trusts, legacy clauses, and how Eleanor's structure was a flawless execution of both lawful intent and poetic justice. The courtroom chuckled when she added, honestly, the only thing shocking is how sound this dog's estate plan is. Harper's attorney looked like he was sweating through his collar. The judge cleared his throat and removed his glasses. Mrs. Calloway, he said, while unconventional, the trust meets legal standards and the court sees no grounds for dissolution. Harper gasped. In fact, he continued, your actions, recorded, documented, and now public, suggest malicious interference and potential financial coercion. We're forwarding the evidence to the ethics board. Then, with a sharp finality, petition denied. The trust stands. And Mrs. Harper Calloway, you are hereby ordered to pay all legal fees incurred by the defendant. Bella barked once, loud, triumphant. Outside, Eleanor stepped down the courthouse stairs to a throng of microphones. Will you comment on the verdict? A young reporter asked breathlessly. Eleanor smiled, lifting Bella gently into her arms. Bella has no comment, but I'll say this, if you treat someone like a dog, don't be surprised when the dog ends up with your house. Laughter, applause, a sea of clicks from phones. Harper stormed past them, sunglasses on, face red, lawyer in tow. As Eleanor opened her car door, her lawyer handed her an envelope. He frowned. "It's from Harper," he said. "She's not appealing, but she is filing for bankruptcy." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Good," she said, settling Bella into the passenger seat. "Let's see how well she handles life, without a leash to pull. They gave me a bone, I gave them a legacy." The first official board meeting of the newly established Bella's Legacy Fund began not with a gavel, but with the soft click of manicured nails tapping a sleek silver pointer against a touchscreen display. At the head of the conference table, Eleanor sat in tailored slate gray, dignified, composed, but this time with a mischievous gold scarf tucked into her blazer pocket. Next to her, lounging in a custom faux leather dog bed embroidered with her name, Bella gave an approving little grunt. The air smelled of eucalyptus and polished wood, the crisp scent of new beginnings and disinfected boardrooms. The logistics company her late husband once helped co-found now had a new philanthropic arm, one dedicated not just to logistics, but legacies. "Item 1, Eleanor said smoothly, "finalizing our quarterly dividend transfer. 40% of shareholder gains now belong to Bella's Legacy Fund, and effective today, those funds will go to senior animal rescue shelters and elder care community grants." She clicked again. The next slide displayed their first 3 grant recipients: a no-kill shelter in North Carolina, a senior home in Tucson that allowed pets, and a mobile vet unit for elder residents in rural Georgia. A few of the board members clapped lightly. The rest stared in awe at the calm audacity of it all. Later that afternoon, Eleanor stood in her now empty foyer. Dust motes drifted in the sunlight, beaming through the tall windows. A framed photo of her wedding day rested beside the open moving boxes, and across the floor, Bella chased a stray ribbon that had fallen from one of the packing crates. Eleanor knelt beside a final piece she hadn't yet bubble-wrapped, a framed digital printout. On it, bold letters read, "She who was unwanted now owns their home." She ran her fingers over the glass. Her eyes didn't glisten, they sharpened. This wasn't sentiment. This was closure, sealed and hung. 2 days later, the for sale sign stood staked in the front lawn. The listing didn't even go public. It had already been arranged with an anonymous buyer, a creative nonprofit that supported displaced women and animals with nowhere to go. The home would become a rotating artist and activist residency, a place for voices rarely heard. Eleanor smiled when she heard the first muralist would be a 68-year-old widow who painted portraits of rescue dogs. Her son would have hated that. Harper would have fumed. That made it feel even more right. Her new condo was sunlit and small, 2 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a community garden downstairs where neighbors greeted her with lavender-scented soaps and welcome casseroles. Eleanor unpacked only what mattered: her journals, the original share certificates, a bronze statue of a sleeping dog, and Bella's leash hook shaped like a crown. In the kitchen, taped to the refrigerator, hung Bella's honorary title letter, "To Bella Calloway, our board pup and first 4-legged shareholder, may you continue to drool over dividends." Eleanor added a paw print-shaped magnet to keep it centered. One quiet Thursday, as Bella dozed on the porch in her sun hat, yes, a real one, Eleanor flipped through the day's mail. Among the usual charity appeals and catalogs, a cream envelope stood out, thick, luxurious, with gold lettering that shimmered. Inside, a note: "Dear Mrs. Calloway, we are working on a national feature entitled, 'The Dog Who Inherited a Fortune.' Your story has captured global attention. We'd love an exclusive interview about the trust, the transformation, and the legacy. Sincerely, Evelyn Rivers, Senior Editor, Pet and Power magazine." Eleanor stared at it for a long moment, lips twitching at the corners. "Bella," she called, waving the envelope. "Looks like they want your close-up." Bella lifted her head, yawned, then lazily rolled over, her gold tag collar catching the light like a crown. As Eleanor slipped the business card into her planner, a call buzzed through on her phone. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A clipped voice said, "We're reaching out from the office of Governor Harlan. The First Lady would like to speak with you. about starting a pet-focused elder policy task force. Would you be willing to meet? Eleanor blinked, then smiled. Let me check with Bella's calendar. They thought I'd sign away my future. I signed their exit. The pen moved slowly, deliberately, over parchment that crackled softly beneath Eleanor's fingers. Her hand, steady despite the storm this signature would unleash, paused just above the dotted line. It was early morning. The kind of silence that belonged only to those who had outlived noise itself filled the sunlit condo. Bella snored faintly on the rug by the window, unaware that her name, already inked into corporate ledgers and trust paperwork, was about to become the most unexpected symbol of revolution yet again. Eleanor's lips curled. They thought I'd write my will in weakness, she muttered. They forgot I've been writing legacies in silence for years. She pressed the pen down and signed. Eleanor M. Calloway. Final amendment. Contingency clause. Activation beneficiary, Marina Holt, licensed veterinary technician and former emergency responder. Years ago, Eleanor had met Marina in a cramped animal hospital waiting room. Her beagle, Daisy, had collapsed mid-walk. Everyone else had brushed Eleanor aside, until Marina took her hand, looked her in the eyes and said, "We'll take care of her like she's ours." They saved Daisy, and Eleanor never forgot. Now, should Bella ever pass, every dollar, stock, and holding in the Bella Living Trust would fall into Marina's hands, not Harper's, not Scott's, and if Harper dared to contest this amendment, a secret clause would trigger immediate forfeit of all residual claims, irrevocable. It was poetic and airtight. Later that day, Eleanor sat in her reading chair while her lawyer, Frank Myers, double-checked the documents. "This clause is elegant but merciless," Frank said, looking up through his gold-rimmed glasses. "She contests. She loses everything. That's war." Eleanor looked unbothered. "She declared it first. I'm just returning the courtesy." Frank chuckled. "This'll be the third time you've gone viral if anyone finds out." She didn't smile, not quite. They did find out. Within 48 hours of Eleanor's interview in Pet and Power magazine, headline, "How One Widow Turned a Dog into a Dynasty." The story caught fire. Media outlets from The Guardian to TMZ picked it up. Talk shows debated the legality of a canine-led trust. Twitter crowned Bella the CEO of Karma Inc. But the line that shook everyone? "They tried to kennel me. I gave the leash to a legacy." The public ate it up. Harper didn't. Her brand, once built on lifestyle minimalism and curated aesthetics, now lay scorched. The comments turned brutal. "How's your business doing now that your mother-in-law's dog owns more real estate than you?" Elder abuse isn't cute, it's criminal. Bella's fashion sense is better than Harper's entire collection. Sponsors pulled out, one by one. Jeremy, her social media manager, quit. Even their own manufacturing partner paused distribution, citing reputational risk. Meanwhile, Eleanor watched it all unfold with mild curiosity. She didn't gloat. She didn't post a single word. She let silence work its ruin. But Scott, he finally read the amended documents, and in them, he found the line that gutted him. Scott Calloway will remain acknowledged as a formal placeholder in estate history, but not as an active heir. Placeholder, by definition, something meant to be replaced. He came to her door the next day. He didn't speak, just handed her a letter and walked away. Inside, it simply said, "I didn't know. I didn't stop it either." That night, as Eleanor sipped chamomile tea beside a snoozing Bella, her phone buzzed. It was Frank. "Thought you might want to know," he said. "Harper's online store is officially deactivated. Full collapse. Public boycott. Fraud complaints, and someone unearthed those forged caregiving forms. I'd say, the house of cards just met the wind." Eleanor tilted her head. Shame. She had a good run. Then she looked down at Bella's collar, still engraved in gold, trust owner. She took another sip. The next morning, the mail arrived. In the stack was a thick red envelope, stamped with a silver crest. Eleanor opened it slowly. Her brows rose. Inside, a confidential RSVP from the Office of the President of the National Women's Finance Network, an invitation to keynote at their next summit, Theme? Inheritance, power, and the woman who rewrote both, with a signature. She called me dead weight. I built my life on freedom. The walls no longer echoed with entitlement. Instead, they held warmth, soft creams and sunlit ambers, framed prints of lakeside mornings and oil paintings in progress. Eleanor stood barefoot on the hardwood floor of her new condo, the sun warming her shoulders, a mug of chamomile in one hand, Bella curled lazily at her feet. Her fingers traced the frame above the fireplace, an elegant document bordered in gold leaf. Bella Calloway, primary beneficiary, trust owner. The seal of the Bella Living Trust gleamed beneath it, proud and indisputable. Above it she'd hung an old photograph, not of family, not of holidays, but of Daisy, her first dog, ears perked, tongue lolling out, taken 23, years ago on the back porch of a different house. A different life, a different version of herself. She whispered softly, "This one's for you, girl." Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Eleanor hosted financial literacy sessions in the community library. Women, most over 50, gathered around the long oak table as she pulled out spreadsheets and wills, trust templates and letters of authority. "I was nearly signed over like a car lease," she once told the group. "Then I remembered I paid for the road." Laughter followed her like a second language now. Even her sarcasm had softened. "You can't rely on respect," she told a woman named Grace one afternoon. "You build your own walls, paint them, lock them, invite only those who knock kindly." Her phone buzzed on Friday just after lunch. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice wasn't. "This is Martin Kessler," the man said, smooth and amused. "I represent a licensing agency. We're building a feature around the intersection of animals and asset law, and let's just say your little Bella has become an icon." Eleanor blinked. "You want to license my dog?" "Technically, her persona," he clarified. "Books, merch, possibly a children's show. You've inspired a generation." She looked down at Bella, now stretched dramatically across a plush dog bed embroidered with Madam Chairwoman. "She eats paper," Eleanor said. Martin laughed. "We can work with that." She ended the call after a few more questions, already imagining Bella plush toys with little gold sashes. Her smile didn't fade as she brewed a fresh pot of tea, the scent of lavender rising like ceremony. That evening, she walked the path beside her building. Not rushed, not watched, just present. The neighborhood was quiet, alive with the hum of cicadas and distant wind chimes. Bella trotted ahead, tail swinging like punctuation. They passed the new animal shelter under construction, one Eleanor had quietly invested in 2 months ago. It was small, modern, and had a sign waiting to be mounted. "The Daisy Center for Forgotten Companions." The builder saw her passing and waved, still planning to bring Bella to the ribbon cutting. "She wouldn't miss it," Eleanor replied. "She's funding it." By nightfall, she was curled on her couch, legs tucked under a knitted throw, another novel open beside her. Bella had found her way into Eleanor's lap, a rare moment of stillness from the diva dog whose fortune now dwarfed that of many. She reached over and set her phone to silent. But not before one final message popped up. "Jeremy, can I visit?" "Just me." Eleanor stared at it. No punctuation, no apology, just hesitation, or maybe humility. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she turned her phone face down, her tea still warm in her palm. She listened to the night wrap around her condo like a quilt stitched with freedom, choice, and an earned kind of quiet. Bella let out a little snore. Eleanor smiled. Her thumb hovered over Jeremy's message. Finally, she tapped once. "Come Sunday. No more, no less. They thought I needed a room in their house. I built my own kingdom." The knock came at exactly 9 a.m. Eleanor had been waiting, not anxiously, but with a quiet readiness that only age and distance could teach. She'd set the kettle on 5 minutes prior. The house smelled faintly of jasmine tea and fresh eucalyptus from the open diffuser on the bookshelf. Bella was already stationed by the door, tail wagging slowly, wearing her gold satin bow tie like a coronation ribbon. When she opened the door, Jeremy stood there, eyes sunken, hands empty. "I didn't bring flowers," he said, voice low, ragged. I figured they wouldn't mean much anymore. Eleanor studied him. The creases near his eyes were deeper. He looked like a man who had been forced to hear truth when he'd spent years avoiding it. You were right, he added, his gaze dropping. About everything. And I was spineless. She stepped aside. Come in. The living room was cozy, washed in the kind of warm light that softened anger. Jeremy noticed the photo above the mantel. Eleanor with Bella on her lap, both of them looking into the camera like they'd just signed a merger. The condo didn't scream wealth, but it radiated freedom. I didn't know where else to go, he admitted. Eleanor handed him a cup of tea without responding, jasmine and mint. It filled the silence with warmth his words couldn't. They sat across from each other. Bella took her usual place beside Eleanor's feet, one paw on her slipper, like a tiny living heirloom. I didn't come for anything, Jeremy continued. I lost everything. The business is gone. Harper left. Took half of what I didn't even own. Eleanor finally met his eyes. And? He swallowed. I don't want forgiveness. I just wanted to say thank you for not destroying me the way we tried to destroy you. She leaned back in her chair, one hand resting gently on Bella's head. I didn't want to destroy you, Jeremy. I wanted you to remember who built your ground. His breath caught. I was so stupid. No, Eleanor said calmly. You were convenient. There's a difference. She rose without drama, walked to a low cabinet near the window, and opened it. Inside sat a single canvas, her latest painting. She turned it toward him. The house, the old one, the one he and Harper had tried to gut, modernize, and call their own. But it wasn't the house itself that took his breath away. It was the caption painted delicately at the bottom. Rooms mean nothing without respect. I painted it last month, she said. Not because I miss it, but because it reminded me how easily love becomes real estate. Jeremy looked away, ashamed. But, she added, I'm still your mother. I don't need a room in your life. I never did. I needed dignity. And now that I have it, I don't trade it for blood or apologies. I understand, he whispered. She looked at him long and hard, then nodded once, an offering, not of absolution, but of finality. Bella yawned and blinked up at him. He let out a sad chuckle. She still hates me, doesn't she? She has better taste now, Eleanor replied, deadpan. Later that afternoon, Eleanor sat by her writing desk. A sleek folder sat before her, her memoir contract. The final version. On the cover, Who Let the Dog In? A publisher's logo in gold emboss. A title already whispered in early publishing circles as the most scandalously brilliant pet meets power memoir of the decade. With a steady hand, Eleanor signed her name, Eleanor W. Calloway. As she capped the pen, Bella barked once, like punctuation. Eleanor laughed under her breath, setting the pen beside the plaque she'd received just last week from the Senior Entrepreneurs Guild for building a legacy with teeth. The final scene unfolds slowly. Eleanor stands in the doorway of her condo, wind teasing the hem of her shawl. Jeremy's silhouette disappears down the sidewalk, not rejected, not embraced, simply released. Bella sits beside her, golden bow tie straightened, eyes forward like a sentry. She looks out over the lake, the water catching sunlight like mirrors from a forgotten heaven, and in voiceover, her words echo. They handed me a kennel. I left them a legacy, on a leash. She gave her dog a room. I gave her dog the world.